that we operate under is not law. Okay? If you are a U.S. citizen, you're operating under public policy. Now, a lot of us think that public policy is the same thing as public law. We haven't had any laws at all since 1933. So what we have is we have a policy that you're operating under by consent. So with every policy that they try to pass, or they do pass, they call it an act. Now, if you've ever been to a play at school for your children, they're in a play and it's an act, okay? And so you can tell that they're acting because they have on costumes. And so when they passed the Department of Motor Vehicles Act, they made sure that you knew that you were participating in an act and it wasn't real. Okay? That's why they dressed up all the actors. We have costumes on the Highway Patrol. We have costumes on the Sheriff Department. We have costumes on the judge when you get there. You're participating in a suit when you get to court. Suit comes from the word suit. This guy is in a suit right now, and so the attorneys wear suits. That's their costume. And you show up and you're supposed to dress just like a citizen. And most of you tonight are dressed like citizens. That's how we dress when we're citizens. So what I'm saying all that for, if that makes sense, is that if those were all laws, there would only be 10 of them there. Do you remember the guy, the Joker, in that movie? And the guy says, how many of your friends did I hurt? And he goes, 5. And he goes, 5. So there's only 10 laws, okay? The rest of them are called statutes or codes, and they all fall under acts. Now here's the good news. I said all that to say this. In every act, in every statute, in every code, there's a remedy. And the remedy is not there for citizens. It's only there for the real man. Okay? Now when I say the real man, that's who you think you are. Okay? The flesh and blood. There's always remedy. There's remedy everywhere. I can't believe how many times I've heard in the last couple of weeks someone call me and say, I'm going to court for a dog barking ticket. And I'm going to do this. What do you think? Sounds good. Try it. You know what I'm saying? Now, all these acts, you're participating in them by consent. And one of the things that I'd like to talk about maybe the next time we come is the Pledge of Allegiance. The other consent that we have is when you gave up title to your car. You turned it into a vehicle and you entered it into the play. And so now you're no longer a traveler, you are a driver or you're an operator. And travelers don't get tickets. They can't. There's no law against traveling, even at the speed of sound. There's no law, I guarantee you. There's also no law for a traveler to carry a license. There's only licenses for operators and drivers. So if you understand all that stuff so far, I'm going to show you how this all started, because it's kind of like building a house. When you come up to a really nice house that's already built, you just get to notice how big it is. You can't break in. It's got an alarm system. You've got all these things going on with this house. The water, you don't see where the water line comes in. You don't see where the sewer goes out. It's all hid. And so that's where we come in. We come in, we're born into this, I want to call this onto this land. And pretty soon they've got us believing that we have to participate in the play. And so we see our government already structured this huge thing. And we don't see all the sewer going in and the water coming out. I said that right. We don't see the money going into the pipes. And we don't see the money going out of the pipes. Okay? We don't get to see any of that. But if you go back and see pictures of how the house was being built, you can see the backhoe out there on a piece of dirt grading off the weeds. And if you're a contractor, I like talking in those kind of terms because I build. I run equipment. I put in pipes. I've dropped in sewer lines, leach lines. I've done all that stuff. And so as you get going, you forget. You're standing there and you go, wow, oh, I'm standing on the septic tank right about here. Houses that I built, you go back later and you go, do you remember all the water lines had to go around that big rock that we found while we were trying to... So what I'm saying is, we're going to go back in time with history on some of this documentation from the District of Columbia and to see how it's all transpired. Okay? Now, can you zip it up a little bit higher? Okay, the initial review of the District of Columbia. Now, this is called an organic act. Now, I don't know, organic is the same thing as charter. And they hide words behind other words that have the same meaning so that you'll think organic means fresh. Okay?
Natural.
1871. It seems like it only sets up a local government like a Chicago or Seattle. How do you get that they formed a private corporation? Okay, raise it up a little bit. If you take the act out of this historical context, from the present looking at the past, imagine who the parties involved are. We might agree, however, we cannot do that. To best understand what really happened, we have to follow a couple of principles. And the first one is you have to know who you are before you can understand anything else around you. Okay? If you think that you're a wolf cub out in the forest, okay, and you're freezing to death, and you find out later that you're a man and you can make fire, everything around you changes. So we've got to understand who you are first to understand this stuff. Okay, God created you to be the king on your land. The word is called sovereign. That means so over reigns. You're driving the horse. You got a hold of the reins. That's what so over reigns, sovereign means, okay? So, we'll raise it up a little bit more. Always know that yourself first. Discover the true nature of all the other parties second. Okay, all that you can pass up because it gets a little too deep right there. So right there where it says thus, to understand the parties involved in the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. Think about that. That was only 140 years ago. Okay, 2 generations. That's it. So we're not that far back. Although they didn't have planes and cars and all that stuff there, most of the people in that time era were biblical. Okay, they had a Bible and they had a law book. Okay, they knew the law, and those are the 2 books that they had on their hearth of their fireplace. And instead of going home and watching TV, or going down to the gym, or whatever they did, whatever we do now, bridge club, NASCAR races, I mean, you got to understand that the Defacto has put everything in front of us to keep us distracted. I mean, every sport you can think of is on TV. When I was a kid, we had, I think, 13 channels, maybe 12 because Channel 1 wasn't a channel. But we only had 12 channels, and if there wasn't something on TV that we liked, that thing was off most of the time. We were out playing. I mean, I didn't have video games. And our children don't have the same thing that's going on. And if you look at the underlying of what all's going on with that, they're using all of that to keep us beat down, to keep us tired, to keep us working, and so that we don't go on the internet and read the District of Columbia Act from 1871. So anyway, I'm going to go down about the 3rd sentence. We're not going to get into this act entirely, suffice to say, looking over the situations we find that the act is one made by the original jurisdiction Congress. So this was made by the original Congress, okay, the good Congress. Right out of the Civil War, it started being a little more, the Congress was a little corrupt because the South walked out, and so they appointed people at gunpoint to come in and pass this stuff. But nevertheless, they were still operating as a de jure type of government. Okay?
Question.
Okay.
Or actually a comment. There's also inside that document, you're not going to read it, but there's a limitation as to the amount of land that the federal government can set aside for purposes such as the District of Columbia?
We're going to get into that. Yeah. Really good.
Sorry.
That's okay. Now, there's a guy that studied history. Let's give him an applause. I'm serious. Okay, the District of Columbia was originally provided for in the Constitution for the United States. That's the original one from 1787 at Article 1, Section 8, specifically in the last two clauses, on July 16th in 1790. So, a good thing that was put aside by our congressmen or by our forefathers was corrupted by some people that had other agenda in them, okay, in their pocket. The territory included the actual government. Under the Act, Congress also made the president the civic leader of the local government in all matters in that territory. So the president was a civil leader, a civic leader. You see how that, he wasn't even the president. Now, if I were to change the name of the District of Columbia to the District of Mexico, and we allowed Mexico to build a 10 square mile capital area in the middle of Oklahoma, okay? And we said you guys could stay there and you could pass all the laws that you want. I've got to say Oklahoma because that would be right in the middle of the heart of our country, okay? Now, right in the middle of the heart of our country back then was Washington, D.C. So, but if we let Mexico set up a little spot there and we told them they could hire a little president and they could do their own little thing, but they only had jurisdiction over that 10 square miles, what would we care? Would you care? Would anybody care? I mean, they had to stay to themselves, okay? Any laws that they passed was only for the citizens of that area and their employees. Okay, go ahead.
Isn't that what an embassy is? Isn't that like that is a foreign foreign jurisdiction in our country? Isn't that what?
Real close. That's
okay.
kind of how this got started. Okay, let's raise it up just a little higher. On February 27th, 1801, under the 2nd District of Columbia Act, 2 countries were formed and the respective officers and district judges were appointed. Further, the established town, raise it up some more, governments of Alexandria, Georgetown, and Washington were recognized as constituted and placed under the laws of the district, its judges, etc. So the United States Supreme Court has repeatedly called this act the District of Columbia Organization Act. So they're an organization. Okay? Or the Charter Act of the District of Columbia. Now, if you look up the word charter... Okay, I'm gonna yell this out. Charter is a document issued by a sovereign or state outlining the conditions under which a business, city, or other corporate body is organized and defining its rights and privileges. Okay, so the District of Columbia got its privileges from the sovereign. Okay? That's you and me. We are the descendants of the sovereign. So we are sovereigns. Okay? According to the United States Supreme Court, the Charter Acts, first acts, were the official incorporation of the formal government of the District of Columbia. Now, I want you to notice that the official incorporation of a formal government, not the United States of America. It doesn't say America. It says the government of the District of Columbia, as chartered by Congress in accord with the Constitution's privileges or provisions. So what they did is they took something good and they subbed it out. We don't want to mess with this. We're going to let them do it. Okay? Are you guys following this so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, the Supreme Court called that the body of government a corporation with the right to sue and be sued. Now that's good news for you and me. They have the right to be sued. We have the right to sue them. Now here's something really great if you've been studying 1215.org, that we, the sovereign, can change our mind. It's kind of almost like a wife. I'm not saying that in a bad way. How many men have ever gotten mad at their wife because they changed their mind? Maybe when you first got married, but after a while you don't get mad. It's just part of the deal. I'm going to wear this. And then they come back out and they got on something. You go, did you change? Yeah, I didn't feel comfortable with that. Well, that's how we are as a sovereign, okay? We can agree to a driver's license, and then we can say, you know what? I don't want the driver's license anymore. That's what sovereign is all about. There's a great case with the Indian tribe being sovereign, changing their mind. And the corporation sued them, and the Supreme Court said, sorry, they're sovereign, they can change their mind. So there's some more hope for us about changing our mind. Oh, 1215.org, okay. This guy right here has got a great website. If you go to 1215.org, 1215 stands for the Magna Carta. That's when it was signed, okay? That was one of the first documents that was signed to help the slaves get out of bondage, basically. It wasn't a great document because they hid a lot of the truth in that. That sets the basics for the first rule of our standard for review, know the parties. What we have presented is sufficient to show that the basics of who the parties are and related to resolving the answer. We admonish everyone to prove the facts or search themselves. The second rule, down here in that last paragraph, the rule from our standard review is when you understand the environmental nature of the relationship. With that in mind, let's consider the events of the time. The Civil War had recently ended, and the country was still under Lincoln's Conscription Act. We call that a martial law now. Okay, so under martial law, president can write anything, and it's considered as law. Okay? Now, once we come out of martial law, all those laws are abated. That means they're no longer in effect. Okay? So if you notice, every president since then has declared war on something. Declared war on drugs. We've declared war on poverty. They've all declared war on something to keep us into a state of war, so that the president has ultimate power in our country. Okay? Congress had at least 3 problems they could see no way to directly cure by following the laws of the land. They were out of funds. They had promised 40 acres of land to each slave that left the South to fight for the North, and they had to reintegrate the South into the Union, which they could not do without controlling the appointment of the Southern states' congressional members. There were other problems, but these 3 stand out from all the rest. That is enough about the environment for the purposes of this review. However, the more you study the historical events of this time, the more obvious the relationships become. You will become a more proof, it'll become, and the more proof you will have to amass to prove the facts, what actually happened. In the interest of time and space, in this response, we'll move on. Okay, the next one up. Knowing the government of District of Columbia was already created into the government, and so formed into a municipal incorporation in 1801, under the District of Columbia Acts, we wonder, even with Congress's constitutional authority to pass any law within the 10 square mile of the district, how do you create or incorporate for the first time a municipal government that has already been in existence as a municipal corporation for 70 years? And the answer is, it's impossible. So what Congress did is they committed fraud.
It's illegal.
Okay? Now, the cool part is the District of Columbia only has authority over the District of Columbia. Okay? And its jurisdictions. How do they get jurisdiction? By consent. Only by our consent. So they call things, instead of the Arizona state, they changed the terminology to the state of Arizona. It's kind of like being in a state of euphoria. Are we in a euphoria now? We're not in the state of Arizona either. Okay? We're on the Arizona Republic, or we're on the Arizona state, whatever you want to say, but we're on. Whenever you're in something, you're under the dirt. You're dead. You're a corporation. So I'm saying all these things to you because when you go to court and the judge asks you, where do you live, and you use the word in, you're done. I'm telling you. He's looking for contracts. He's looking for something that you signed. Do you have a driver's license? You say yes, you're done. He's looking for 3 contracts of 3 specific pieces of information to trap you into his jurisdiction. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this. People call and they say, what is the Republic doing? Well, the Republic, for one thing, we're educating as fast as, if I'm in a bank line trying to cash a check, and somebody says, boy, is this economy crooked? I go, we're standing in the biggest bank robbers of all time, right here. He goes, where? I go, right here. They're on the other side. They're robbing us every time we get here. And I talk about it all the time because you never know who you're going to run into that is looking for what we're doing. And I got to tell you right now, the season is perfect. I mean, it is perfect right now. I don't have anybody say, oh yeah, that George Bush, he was great. Or that Jimmy Carter, boy, what a great guy. Everybody's just sick of everything. You know what I mean? The lights are turning on. So I'm going to get into the 3 contracts with you real quick so you understand some of that stuff. When you consider the historical facts, the only meaning left for the terms given in the opening paragraph of the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871 and that which follows is that it's a municipal corporation that was created as a private corporation owned by the actual government. And it's saying the government, but it's not saying our government. So what government owns it? The only government created in that act was the same government any private corporation has within operation of its own corporate construct. Thus we call it a corporation US. Now with any corporation, there's investors, okay, there's a board of directors, there's a secretary, and there's a treasury. Now the good part is that all sounds, when I first started hearing this stuff, it was very depressing because I thought, man, we're locked in. The good news is we're sovereign. We can change our mind. You can go back and nullify contracts. You can, let me explain one quick thing about contracts, okay? How do you cancel a contract? Go ahead.
Bankruptcy.
When you're a dead person, that's about the only way you can. But if you're in honor and there's a contract, I have an agreement with him to take out his trash every Saturday. Okay, and I sign it, or I don't sign it, it doesn't matter. There's a trust there that I'm going to take out his trash every Saturday for him. After about 10 years of it, I go, golly, I can't even leave on the weekends. So I say, okay, I'm going to amend our agreement. That's what amendments are for. So I let him know, hey, Brad, for 10 years I've taken out the trash for you, and I need to leave on the weekends. So what I want to do is I want to amend our agreement. I want you to take out your own trash for the next 10 years, and if you have a problem with that, you have to let me know in 21 days. If you don't respond, I'm going to accept your response as no response as agreement. And if you get mad at me, okay, and you cuss at me because you didn't respond properly, it's $1 per cussing. And this is a self-executing contract. So if you say you don't get it, too bad. I know you got it because I'm going to have Bob Jones, the next door neighbor, hand deliver it to you, and he's going to testify that you got it. And by the way, I want you to respond to Bob Jones, the next door neighbor, because if he says you didn't respond, this contract is in full effect. That's how you amend or you cancel a contract. So if we're in honor, there's no fighting. We accept all the terms of the conditions right up to the point where we amend the contract. Is it possible to amend the District of Columbia's contracts?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, if I wanted to pull a tricky one to Brad in the contract, okay, I could say, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and give you $50,000 to let me out of this contract, but I put it in square brackets. I'm going to give you $50,000 to let me out of the contract, and I put it in square brackets. Now, there's some guys here that understand contract law. What do the square brackets mean to that contract of that statement?
It means that's not a part of the contract.
Not there.
That's not there. Okay.
It's not there.
So he could say, hey, you said you're going to give me $50,000. Where is it? I go, that's not part of the contract. Gotcha. Now, if he doesn't understand that, it's buyer beware. Too bad for you. Can you pull up the Constitution? When I started listening to Winston Shroud, I did not understand it, but I knew that people in life where they got to be was from listening to Winston Shroud. I forced myself to watch him. It was like eating broccoli that had been dipped in horse manure. I mean, it was hard, okay? It was extremely hard. I could not fathom what he was talking about. And he would go so fast, and he seemed like a nice guy. He's got white hair. He said he was a framer. I mean, he said he had a couple of jobs, and the guys that I was beginning to run around with kept saying, you need to watch Winston Shroud. Choked him down, night after night. Sometimes I'd watch the same 15-minute segment of the video 100 times, and so I could understand a little bit. At least I could recite it. It was kind of like learning a song, you know. You sing it over 100 times, you can say it, even if you don't know what you're saying. You can understand it. And he said, square brackets. A lot of the stuff in the Constitution doesn't pertain to us, doesn't pertain to citizens. Now I knew this because I was the Chief Justice for a little while, and I knew that the Supreme Court had ruled that when people come in and say, I demand my constitutional rights, the judge says, sit down and shut up. If you say that again, I'm going to throw you in jail. And what the reason why is because the Supreme Court ruled that the Constitution, that the citizens are not a party to it. How could that be? It talks about the 14th Amendment and the slaves. They're a part of it. We're all a part of it. That's our Constitution to keep the government below us. Well, let me show you what I found. Article 1. You see how that's written? In the original Constitution, that's how it's written. Let's slide up about, let's go to the 13th or 14th Amendment. It talks about the people a lot. Now, this is just an observation that I made. There's 3, 4, oh, back. Does anybody see any square boxes? The rights of the citizens of the United States. That isn't a part of the contract. It's on there. But citizens don't have rights. It's like jumbo shrimp. Has anybody seen a shrimp this big? There are no jumbo shrimp. There's a little bit bigger ones than the bigger ones, but they're all shrimps. Okay, they're all small. That article right there, 2026, is not part of the Constitution. Now, if you look at the Constitution of the United States, because there's 2 of them, the opposite brackets are on those ones. Okay? So if you're a citizen, you got to read the second one. And if you're a sovereign, you need to read the first one. That's all there is to it. Now, I've got one more quick thing to tell you. What?
Could you explain the 4 corners?
The 4 corners rule? Just a quick thing to have some fun. The next time you get a ticket, if a highway patrolman pulls you over, be real nice. Hand him your license and tell him that's your corporation license. Okay? That's my corporate traveling pass. Have some fun with it, okay? Be nice to the guy. But when you sign your name in the ticket, put a square box around the signature area and make sure it's all locked in, so that it's, and then sign in that box and hand it back to him. Okay? If you guys know what A for V is, go ahead and get that on there too. All right? Now, when you hand that to him, if it gets back to the court, there's no signature on it. Okay? You guys, if you know how to defend that, it's a lot of fun. Okay? I'm just telling you, that's one way to do it. But everything that's boxed in on this thing, now I'm not going to show you all this stuff because this is great for you to go home and turn off 2.5 Men. You don't have to worry about them. They're not recording anymore. So don't watch TV. If you're going to watch TV, just watch maybe half as much as you normally do and get on the computer and pull up Constitution for the United States. Go ahead.
What's the opposite of the square brackets? You mentioned it's the opposite. What are those things?
Okay. Anything that's in a square box, it's called the 4 corners rule. That means anything that's within a box on a document, it does not pertain to that document. It's like it doesn't even exist. It's empty. It's gone. It's not there.
Is that like a comment?
Well, if you look in a lot of the books where they... I have an old book from the 1800s about woodworking. And they were talking about how they would sharpen blades. And because the book was so old, they used to do almost all their sharpening with a stone and a leather strap. Okay? Well, then down at the bottom, they added something in there that you can get a whetstone on a grinding wheel, and you can do all this with an electric buffer. Okay, so they added that in there, and they put it in boxes, which means that the author didn't write that into there. Somebody put that in there. Okay? So it's really not part of the book. That's the same thing with your credit card bills. If you see a credit card bill, everything is always in squares over to the right. Have you ever noticed that? You want to make a payment? The square boxes. When you put a number in there and you send in a check, because those numbers are in the boxes, your payment never gets put back into your account. You made a contribution to a corporation called Visa or MasterCard, and they're going to sit on that for about 3.5 years, and then they're going to claim it that you abandoned your money. Okay? Now, when you start seeing boxes, I want you to check this out. There's boxes everywhere. Okay? I mean, everywhere. I went into Western Union and sent a friend $200 the other day. What an experience that is! Okay, I had to write in the box $200 to put into the system so that they would transfer it to someone else. The $200 was just an indication of what I would like to be in the system for somebody in a different area. When I signed my name to that union, okay, that name is what put the money into the system. My signature is what created the money. Now, when the money went in there, okay, by my signature, out of thin air, I gave the guy $200 free to do whatever he wanted with. So, are you guys following that? The $200 disappeared. It never made it to him. I signed something that caused the $200 to come in there. Now, as I was leaving, getting ready to go, they go, "We got one more thing for you to sign." I go, "What's that?" They go, "An authorization to transfer the money somewhere else." And I said, "So you're going to get 2 signatures?" How about that? So I signed it again. Okay, now I called up my buddy and I go, "Hey, let me know if they make you sign twice." He goes, "Okay." So he signed once, they gave him the money, but before they gave him the money, they said, "You got to sign one more time here." So what they did is they did a dual transaction for $400, okay? They kept all $400, and I'm sure they gave the IRS their cut, because I created that money with my signature. And I gave them $200 for doing me a favor, transferring the money through a wire to somewhere else. Okay? So as you're going along, all these square boxes that were on that, on the Union, what is it called? Western Union. There were square boxes everywhere. I mean, they really got themselves covered. So while you're out there doing commerce, okay, while you're out there doing this stuff, keep your eyes open. Start seeing it. Do you remember that old movie with Roddy Piper? You remember he puts on the glasses and all those people are all jacked up?
They live.
Do you remember that movie? And you could only see him when the glasses were on? Well, I'm giving you a pair of glasses tonight. I want you to wear them. Keep your eyes open. The Word of God says, study to show yourself approved. We got to study, guys. The remedies are everywhere. They're hid everywhere. And all those rules and zones and codes and all that stuff, there's a remedy in every one of them that we can get out, okay, of whatever contract it is. We're having some great success. 3 or 4 places now that we know of that the judges are actually asking for the note, the original note on a foreclosure, to be married to the default judgment. It has to be married according to the laws. Okay? And the judges are starting to stand up. Now, if you don't know where to tell the judge that law is, but that's our remedy. Okay? So look for the remedies. If you find any, please call them into us so that we can explain it to everybody else. If you guys see anything funny like that, okay?
Excuse me for interrupting.
Sure.
Back to the boxes for a second. Every time I deposit money in the bank, we fill out a box. Are you saying we should not?
No. Now, just understand this, that that's the form of commerce, okay, that we have agreed to. It's gotten so far out of hand that we all have to have a capital letter name on a checking account in order to do commerce. There's a private side and a public side. Your labor is on the private side. What you do for work is on the private side, okay? On the public side, there's an entity with the same name as you. They spell it a little different, okay? That's the transmitting utility in order for you to go into the matrix and go down the street and get some groceries and come back out. Now, the Republic is here so that we don't have to have that, because every time you use that, they charge you a usury tax. Now, the Bible says that's a sin. Usury is a sin. To make money with your money on interest on someone else's hard labor is a sin. But I found the other day that it says it's okay for foreign countries to do that. So if you understand we're all foreigners in the United States. Or you can look at it the way I look at it, the foreigners are here in my America. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hope I touched on some stuff so you guys understand it. Please study. On the website, one of them is called, let me pull it up. One of them is called, if you just pull in there for a search on Google, I put up the Constitution and it came up, The Rape of We the People and the Constitution for the United States. So that one really gets into some really great stuff. But, you know, don't get depressed about it because there's remedy everywhere. There's remedy in everything that we can do. And so as we move the Republic forward with more and more people and more armies, that's it. The rape of the Constitution, the United States constructive. Constructive fraud. And it talks about how if something's, the Supreme Court ruled on this, if something's totally fraudulent, but it's got some good things in it, we're going to go ahead and allow it. Okay? All through these documents, your mind will start opening. When you go to sign some documents, you'll understand. I mean, I was out in California last week, and I went with a friend to sign a contract for a demolition job. And the guy spun the papers around to him, and they were talking, and he just went to the last page and started signing. And I went, "Oh, golly, what are you doing?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Don't you think you ought to read that?" And he goes, "Well, the guy sent it over to me early, and this is a contract." So I go, "Can I talk to you outside?" I went outside and I go, "What if it's not the same contract?" And he goes, "That's a good idea. I better go in there and read it." He went in there and made 7 changes to the contract. Now, I'm not saying that either one of them were bad guys. I'm just saying what he understood on the phone and what was on the paper was different. We have all done the same thing. When you go in and apply for a driver's license, you give up title to your right in exchange for a benefit and a privilege. Okay? One of the benefits is if you get hurt on the highway patrol, the guy with the costume on, will call another guy with a costume, it's called an ambulance, and they'll come help you. Okay? That's one of the benefits. One of the other benefits is you get to go to jail if you don't pay your bill. The guy that didn't show up in court, the benefit for him acting like a convict is he gets to be a convict. He gets to go to jail. So if anybody's listening to all this stuff, I want you to know that we're going to do this because we're smarter than they are. They stole our country with a pen, and we're going to take it back. It's going to be a ballpoint blue Bic, okay? I'm not kidding you. That pen, nothing is mightier than the pen, not even the sword, okay? So anyway, I want to thank you guys for all standing around. I'm sorry.
Quickie,
Okay.
the deal about the size of the property is that, for instance, all of the grant, if you go west of the Mississippi, most of it's owned by the government. They can't do that. Not only did we buy it in the first place a long, long time ago, isn't that right, Alan? Steve? We bought it outright. The United States owns the whole ground. But then they later on said, no, we want to grab all this fine forest ground and everything with minerals on it.
Well, by consent, we allowed that. Now, the good part is we could change our mind, okay? So if you guys want to talk a little bit afterwards, I know Stoney's going to wrap stuff up. If you guys want to talk a little bit, we're going to try and I'm going to turn it back over to Stoney.
Hey, this is RobbbRyder, Thursday, May 9th, 2013. And I've shown this before numerous times. This is my certified copy of Record of Birth. And, you know, it's always fascinated me with some of the things it says on here, like Robert Allen Ritlewski, right, is a child, now remaining in my office, and the whole thereof, viz. And viz had a particular definition. Had to do with a finding of a jury and child, right? And then you got Ritlewski, Robert Allen, right, which is where the idea for the true name came up, because your true name is your surname coupled with your given name and initials. And so your initials would be if you're a junior or a senior, I guess. But it's your true name, it's your surname with your given name. But for today, so then it shows my parents with my mother's maiden name are in residence of Auburn, Michigan. Place of birth, or birthplace of each, Michigan. Right, so at the bottom here, right, it's got in testimony whereof, so it's got a testimony statement on a particular day. Stephen Toth, the county clerk, and then the deputy clerk signed, and then they put the circuit court for the county of Bay. This is the court of record seal, and it's nice, beautiful gold seal. Well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, it's going to have something to do with what I was talking to Juan earlier today about, with the fictitious name. And let me see. We'll talk about this form here later, but this is the one I would do for Kent County. So we're not going to start with this one, but I just want to show you at the bottom. It's got a testimony statement. It's got the county clerk's name. It's got a place for the deputy. All right, county clerk, deputy. Deputy's going to sign. And there's room over here to put a big ass gold seal. And then this would be recorded in the court of record, which would be binding on the world. So this really started, this is where it is on for Florida, right? It's fictitious name registration. Now Florida, you do it through the Secretary of State. Michigan, you do it through the county. In either case, I think it needs to go to the other. All right, so there's three places this is going to be seen. It's going to be in the county, it's going to be in the state, and then Bobby found in Arizona where it looks like you can send it to the trademark division in the federal government. And then you will have trademarked your name, and it will become your, lack of a better term, your coat of arms, your armorial bearings. Nobody can use, you got a trademark name now. What we haven't done, the fictitious name exists, we haven't claimed it. And I had done a video earlier on this, and I think it was called Claim the Name, based on really the stuff we're talking about now. But what's bringing it up again, for those who didn't see the email or hear the call that I put on TalkShoe, and hell, I don't remember what my TalkShoe thing is, sorry. I did with Juan today at, what is today, did I say it was? May 9th. Where he has gone and done this fictitious thing here, right? So this is what the form looks like. Make it a little smaller to start with. This is for Florida. And application for registration of fictitious name. Juan filled one of these out. He got the certificate back. He took the certificate into a court case. He gave it to the judge. The attorney shows up for the court case. The attorney says probably the same things he says every time he's in a foreclosure to start the case off. And the judge looked over at Juan and said, "Do you object to that?" And Juan said, "Well, sure." Sustained. That's what the judge did, because all Juan brought in was this piece of paper. Well, not this, the certificate that shows that he has claimed the fictitious name. And I can't show his documents, right? I'm sorry, I can't show him. He doesn't want it out, but it starts with this form here. And so all he did on this form is you put the fictitious name to be registered. So this is your all capital letter name, first, middle, and last. And for the address, now he put care of C/O. I don't think that that's necessary. Really what you want to do, right now they're sending mail to a fictitious name, right? Wherever your all capital letter fictitious name gets his mail, that's his mailing address. So put it on here, because you want to tie that mailing address and this name as a fictitious business. It's not you, it's a business. And it doesn't ask you on this one what your business is. But when we were going through this before, people were asked, well, what is the nature of your business? You could tell them it's property management. You could tell them it's estate management. Right? You could tell them it's real estate. Right? Just say it's property management. All right, so he filled out the mailing address. Now, Juan put X's in the state, and this comes from the stuff we were doing earlier this year, claiming the domicile and stuff. So he had put X's here. And in the zip code, he put it in brackets. Again, I don't know that any of that's necessary. I don't know that it would harm, because it doesn't show on the certificate you get anyways. It just shows that the certificate has been, somebody's claimed the name. Florida county of principal place of business. So he put his county down here, county of whatever county he was in. He didn't put the FEI number. Now, going down to this section, this is the owner, a fictitious name if an individual. So you're going to put it in 1. And see, they ask for your last name first anyways, right? Which is, that says right here, Rytlewski Robert Allen is, all right, what they're asking for. And M.I. Now I've gone and looked at M.I. to see what it's an abbreviation of, and I didn't find it. I don't believe it's abbreviation for middle initial whatsoever. I think M. May be the abbreviation for middle name, and I. May be the abbreviation for an initial. So if I was a junior, I would have initials. You want to put your you want to put your full middle name on here. Rytlewski Robert Allen. And you can put the exact same address as you put up here. The reason being is, if they're addressing you, they have to do it by your last name. You're the owner. If they're addressing the corporation, they're going to do it by the all caps name. Okay, and then didn't fill out any of that stuff, and then he did the bottom. Put the signature of the owner. However, you would normally sign your name. Put a phone number, email address if you wanted to do it. So there was none of this other stuff was filled out, right? Because this is if there's 2 owners. Well, there isn't. There's only 1. Owner's a fictitious name if other than an individual, right? So this is, you would use this to do a corporation, to open Pepsi. None of that was done. All that was done was block 1, fictitious name, the address, city, state, zip code, the county. You didn't put an FEI number, last, first, middle, address, the same as the address up here, because it's addressed to somebody else. Because what's happened since we've never claimed the fictitious name, it's always been there. It's been there since you were born. We haven't claimed it since we were 5. Because I think that that's what this is showing. This is the original registration. This is my owner certificate of title to my all cap letter name estate. But the way the rules are written, if you don't renew it every 5 years, right, then it goes into an abandoned estate or abandoned name. I'll show you that with the rules that go with Michigan's here in just a second. But this is all Juan filled out, and then he mailed it in, and he got the certificate back, and they said he had to put it in the newspaper. I mean, this is in the instructions, right? He had to put it in the newspaper for at least a week, I think. And then you get the affidavit of public notice, I guess, whatever they call it when you put a newspaper. And then he took that information, and then just a short, brief comment on like a motion page to say he was entering this in the court case and certifying that he was going to send a copy to the plaintiff's attorney. Now, he had 4 cases going on. Since he did this back in February, he's not gotten mail in any of the cases. And the reason for this is, once the state acknowledges that your all capital letter name is a fictitious entity, that it's a corporation, and that it's registered, well then what you have now are 2 registered corporations in a disagreement if you're in a foreclosure. Well, now we go to contract law, true contract law. And in true contract law, it has to be a bilateral contract. They haven't signed any contracts. Right? They don't have a contract. What they're trying to get you to believe is you're the all capital letter name, and that deed of trust or mortgage that you are the only signator on, right, is really a gift or a donation to them. Because you can do that on a unilateral contract. You could give a gift. However, what it is sitting there, it hasn't been properly done, because if you wanted to give it as a gift, it would have to look like this. You'd have to have witnesses. The court needs to know that you're giving your property away. So I think because the records in the court of record are what are used by law in all courts of law. Right, so that's the important thing. The office of the recorder, whatever's in the office of the recorder, which is the court of record in my opinion, and it's not a courtroom, right? It's a bunch of files. That's the court of record. What's the record say? Open a record, look in it. He's the owner. There's his certificate. You didn't used to have one of those in there. Now you do. Now they can't say they're the owner because there's already somebody in there saying that, you know, you're in there saying you're the owner. And they'd have to call you a liar. And so his case was stayed, right? So what the judge did the first time is she stayed the proceedings. So first of all, she told Juan to object to what the attorney said, or just said, do you object? Yep, okay, sustain. And then she said she was going to do a stay of the proceedings for 30 days, and the attorney started to talk again, and she looked at him and said something really gruff, which I'm sure is a sign to the attorney, shut your damn mouth, it's done. Well, as soon as Juan got outside the door, the attorney's running after him, wondering, rightly so, what did you just do? Because this don't happen to him. It just happened. Juan showed him the certificate and says, I'm going to mail one to you anyways. He said, well, I want it now, basically. So, okay, here's a copy. And so he told Juan, oh, I'm going to take care of this. You're misrepresenting your position or something like that. And so at first Juan was a little bit scared, man. But did I do something wrong? But he's not heard from him since February in any of these cases. Now, after that hearing, he was 30 days, had another hearing. That's what the judge said. Stay for 30 days till you get an attorney. He hadn't gotten one. He was still going to do it himself. Was running late, got to court. Court was already over. He was only 10 minutes late. Oh no, what'd they do, man? I wasn't here. You're going to have to wait and get the mail. Shit. I mean, the things that you think about, right? Until he gets the mail and he finds out that the motion that the plaintiff had put in to strike Juan's earlier affidavit, it had nothing to do with this form, but he had put this affidavit in, right, had been denied by the court. They denied the motion to strike his affidavit. What does that mean? It means the affidavit stands as truth. So what we have now is strictly UCC stuff, right? We've gotten the separation that we need between the all capital letter name and ourselves. And now the all capital letter name is a corporation. And in corporations, between corporations, for one corporation to say another corporation has a debt to them, what do you think they need to have? Need to have a contract signed by both parties. Because in commerce, both parties have to agree. You can't have a unilateral contract. It has to be a bilateral contract signed by both parties. And they don't have any of those with us. This is huge stuff. Huge, huge, huge. Okay, so anyways, you could do it online, right? And in Florida, you could just go do it online and do it. Cost you $50. Then if you want to get a certified copy, a certificate of status, an additional 10, and a certified copy for an additional 30. Do you need those things? I don't know. Do you? You want to cover every base, it's going to cost you $90. Right? If you think you just need the one, it's going to cost you $50. And it only takes a few days to happen. So I think Juan said from the time he did his and got it back, it was maybe 7 to 10 days. But even though he had this, see, here's the thing, even though he had this, it hadn't changed anything in court yet. It wasn't until he put it in the court case. So even if you don't have a court case, what you want to do is get it into the court of record, into a miscellaneous file or a fictitious name file or whatever they have, right? You got a file for fictitious names? Yes. Or no. And have your public notice paperwork and then say, well, do you have a place for public notice? Right? So take your, in these states, you have to go to the newspaper. In Michigan, you can do it all with the clerk, as we'll see in a second. But so, okay, so that can go away, I can go away, and let's look at, because this is how they get you in Michigan, right? And I'm sure we could find this in all the states, but if you haven't done this, as you'll see, you can't have access to the state courts. So these are the rules that on this form here, they're so nice. They put it right at the top. What are they going to do? Under provisions of MCLA 445.1 to 445.5. I got 5 easy rules. What's it say? A person shall not carry on, conduct, or transact business in the state under an assumed name or under a designation, name, or style other than the real name of the person. What's the real name? Surname coupled with given name. Owning, conducting, transacting that business unless the person files in duplicate to in the office of the clerk of the county. Didn't say county clerk, said in the office of the clerk of the county or counties in which the person owns, conducts, transacts, or intends to own, conduct, or transact business. A certificate on a form furnished by the county clerk, which for my county looks like this, furnished by the county clerk. Setting forth the name under which the business is owned or to be owned, conducted, or transacted, and the true or real full name, which is this one, Rytlewski, Robert Allen, is your true name by definition. Setting forth an address of the person owning, conducting, okay, name of the company and the address, and the name of the person and the address. At the time of filing the certificate, the person shall pay the clerk a filing fee of $6. So in Michigan, you don't want to go any further than this. You want to get this part done first. Pay the $6, have the certificate. The certificate shall be executed and duly acknowledged by the person owning, conducting, or intending to conduct the business. So let's take a look, because that's what we want to do first. Okay, this isn't a new, because the name has existed. I just haven't claimed it in quite some time, since I was 5 or 7 or whenever they first made it go away. It would be a renewal. Name of business, Robert Allen Rytlewski, all caps. Address, 10955 14 Mile Road Southeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. Just like the IRS sends it to me. Name of persons owning. Owning. Name of persons owning. Well, that would be your true name, Rytlewski, Robert Allen. What's the residence? 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. Partnership certificate. The undersigned hereby certifies under provisions of something else. I think that would be if you're married, right? But this particular one, this name of this business, because we could have all sorts of assumed names out there now that we don't know about. You and your wife together would make an assumed name of some kind, and there'd be 2 partners, right? All these are different little things, but the master one for you is your birth one. And so if we capture that, it might take care of the rest. So is or is not, and then you sign it, subscribe before the notary, so just take it to the clerk's office and do it there. And then I, Mary Hollenrack, clerk of the county. See, it didn't say county clerk, although you go to her office, it's going to say county clerk. Clerk of the county of Kent and the circuit court thereof do hereby certify the foregoing to be a true and exact copy of the original document online in the office of the county clerk. What this will end up being, because you're doing a duplicate, is your owner's original certificate of title. They're going to have the original certificate of title online for everyone to see that you're the owner. And you're going to have the owner's copy, which is a true and exact copy. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and official seal at the city of Grand Rapids on, and Mary's already on here, and the clerk is going to sign, and I'm taking this in to say when you're done, deputy clerk, there should be a big gold seal right there. Right there. Beautiful. Okay, continuing on. So I want to get that done and pay him $6. The clerk shall certify the duplicate and return it to the applicant. Okay. Address means the residence or principal business address of the person. Yeah, okay, person, whatever a person is. Charter county you can pay a little bit more in a charter county. Certificate, use of assumed name authorized for 5 years. Renewal of certificate, filing form, fee, duration, notice, abandonment. Guess what? These things have happened. So the certificate, when acknowledged and filed as required in Section 1, authorized for use of assumed name for 5 years. If before the expiration date, a renewal certificate on forms to be provided by the county clerk is filed with the county clerk, a fee of $4 paid, the renewal certificate shall extend to the right to use the assumed name for another additional 5-year period from the date of expiration. So you don't need to wait 5 years. What I'm going to do is every year on my birthday, I'm going to get another one. That'll be my birthday present to myself. I'm good for 5 years. Failure to file a renewal certificate and pay the fee of $4 before the expiration date shall on that date constitute abandonment of the assumed name. Abandonment of the assumed name. You just abandon your property. And right now, somebody else is claiming to be your all caps and they go into court. Because when they go to the file, it has an unknown owner. Assumed name certificates, filing period, rejection by county clerk. A person is now owning or conducting such business under assumed name or under such designation referred to in Section 1 shall file such certificate or renewal certificate as hereinbefore prescribed within 90 days after this act shall take effect and after 30 days notice from the county clerk and persons hereafter. I wonder if they ever really did let us know we had to do this. Okay? Who knows? The person hereafter owning, conducting, transacting business as aforesaid shall, before commencing said business, file such certificate in a manner herebefore prescribed. The several county clerks of this state are hereby authorized to reject any assumed name which is likely to mislead the public, or any assumed name already filed in the county, or so nearly similar thereto as to lead to confusion and deception, which is why you don't want to do this as a new one, because your name's already in there. You're already getting mail. The county's the one that gives your address to the post office. We're doing a renewal. We're doing a renewal. At least I am. Assumed name, change of business location, certificate, filing. Now that's a little bit confusing. Whenever an assumed name concern has changed or changes its place of business, right? So originally, I'm in Auburn, Michigan, apparently. Or I'm in Bay City, Michigan, right? I guess I was doing business in Bay City. It shall be the duty of the person or persons conducting such business to file with the county clerk with whom the certificate or renewal certificate required under the provision of Section 1 of this Act was filed. To file with the county clerk with whom certificate under the provision of the Act was filed. File what? It shall be the duty of the person or persons conducting such business to file with the county clerk a certificate stating the change in business location, like change of address, what county clerk, where it is now, or where I'm going to. I'm not really sure. But let's say, but we'll go with what it says, with whom the certificate or renewal certificate required under the provisions of Section 1(1)(a) of this Act was filed. Well, I guess I'm not going to my birth county. I'm going to Kent County. It's not where I was born. So since this is the place I need to register it with, I guess I need to register with them a certificate stating the change in business location, which certificate shall be attached by the county clerk to the certificate or renewal certificate filed under the provisions of 1(a). So there's another certificate stating the change in the business location. It didn't say address, it says the location, right? So you need to look up the definition of business location and see what meets the criteria. Because I would think the business location was County of Bay, right? gonna see if I can get them to tell me. Get this close, they better start giving some answers, or I'll put in a complaint. The problem is you can't get any remedy until you've done this. This is going to blow you away. Which certificate shall be attached to the county clerk? Okay. A change of address with this form here. Find the change of address form with this here. Okay. No problem. Assumed name discontinuance of operation certificate. When assumed name concern shall go out of business, it shall be the duty of the person or persons who have conducted such business to file a certificate in the county clerk or county such concern transacted business of discontinuance of operation of the business in such county or counties, which certificate shall be attached by the county clerk to the certificate of renewal, certificate filed. I think that's where you take your death certificate for your loved ones that have passed away. We need to shut down their business. Something to think about. Certified copies of original. Upon request or payment of $2 per copy, the clerk shall supply certified copies of original or renewal certificates. That's pretty cheap. Sounds like the right office when they're talking $2. Okay. Now this is the difference in Michigan, right? You paid $6 to fill this out and get it certified. That was $6. Now, the county clerk shall keep an alphabetical index of all indexing of all persons filing certificates provided for in this act, and for indexing and filing of certificates shall receive a fee of $10. Remember, you're taking them 2 copies, you're going to keep one and they're going to keep one, and now they're going to go, first they certified it, that was for $6, now they're going to go index it and file it for 10. A copy of the certificate duly certified to by the county clerk in whose office the same is filed shall be presumptive evidence in all courts of law in this state of the facts contained in the certificate. And what are the facts in the certificate? Who the frickin' owner of the business is. This is beautiful. It's going into the court of record, and it's going to be, this is going to have the force of law in all courts in the world. Shall be presumptive evidence in all courts of law. All courts of law. Upon the payment of the $10, a payer shall be entitled to certified copies of the certificate without extra charge, with an additional copies for $1 each at the time of filing the original certificate. So go in and pay the $6, get it certified, and then tell them you want to have it indexed and filed. And if you're in Michigan, take these laws in with you. If you could print it out the way I have it highlighted, I'd do it that way and say, we're doing it by the laws at the top, not by your custom. You're not going to let me do it this way? I need to talk to your boss. Every person who is a non-resident of the state, upon filing a certificate provided for this act, shall file an irrevocable consent to the actions to be commenced against the person in the courts of the state by service or process pleading authorized by the laws of the state. Are we a resident of the state or not? I don't know, right? I'm going to go do the easy part first, see what it does. If I got to come back and do this, make myself a non-resident, I'll do another certificate. There wasn't too much there, but here's the one that where they get you. Because violation of act, penalty, violation of contracts, effect. Any persons or persons owning, carrying, or conducting or transacting business as foresaid who shall fail to comply with the provision of this act, which is to do one of these. Not doing one of these is not complying with the act. Shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Bingo. Everyone's guilty. We're already guilty of a misdemeanor right now sitting at home. And upon conviction thereof shall be punished by a fine of not less than $25 nor more than $100, or by imprisonment in the county jail for a term of not exceeding 30 days, or both, such fine and imprisonment in the discretion of the court. And each day any person or persons shall violate any provision of this act shall be deemed a separate offense. This is how they can put you in jail with nothing, just by this, because you're not following this act. It's enough reason to keep you in jail without filing any charges. Provided, however, the fact that a penalty is provided herein for noncompliance with the provisions of this act shall not be construed to avoid contracts. But any person or persons failing to file the certificate required in Section 1 or 1A shall be prohibited from bringing any suit, action, or proceeding in any of the courts of this state. So it's not going to avoid any contracts, but you're not going to be able to defend yourself because you can't bring any suits, actions, or proceedings in any court of the state until you file the damn paperwork. In relation to any contract or other matter made or done by such persons or persons under an assumed or fictitious name, such as any contract issue, you can't bring up until you've done this. And we have contract issues because we've signed contracts and they haven't. And has somebody else been using your fictitious name? Because when they go to court to get this property, they're saying they're you. And when somebody goes and looks in the record, well, there's no registered owner. I guess if nobody disagrees, he is the owner. We're going to change that. We're going to get a big gold star on our paper and put it in that record, and you're going to own the name until after full compliance with provisions of this act. Once you've done that, well, now you can sue them. You can bring a suit, an action, or proceeding. But no persons or persons doing business under a fictitious name or as the assignee or assignee thereof shall maintain or prosecute any action, nor shall any order, judgment, or decree be made in any action heretofore or hereafter commenced in any court of this state upon an account of any contract or contracts made or transactions had under such fictitious name after August 14th, 1919. Pretty much covers us. No person or persons doing business under a fictitious name or as an assignee shall therefore maintain or prosecute an action or decree made therefore hereafter commenced in any court upon an account for contracts. If conducting of such business under a fictitious name has ceased. If the conduct of such business, oh, that's why, because I did it to myself. All right, if the conduct of such business under such fictitious name has ceased. So where did that start? No persons or persons doing business under the fictitious name or as an assignee thereof shall maintain or prosecute any action, or shall any order, judgment, or decree be made in an action heretofore or hereafter commenced in any court of this state upon an account or accounts of contracts made or transactions had under such fictitious name after 1919, if the conduct of such business under fictitious name has ceased, or if it is still conducted under such fictitious name when until after full compliance with the provisions of this act. Again, we got to comply with the act. I think that if you have death certificates of loved ones, that somehow they need to go into this from one of those earlier sections. Right now I'm going to worry about the living. Right? I'm not going to worry about the decedents. I'm going to take care of the owners, the living. And the owners need to go and say they're the frickin' owner and say that the name is their property and get it into the court of record so it's presumptive evidence in all courts of law. And it's a one-page document. However, you may need to have a change of address for them. We'll figure out how to do that next, but I just wanted to add this to the audio I did earlier on TalkShoe. If you go to my TalkShoe site, which is Taking Clues from Ancient Books. Taking Clues from Ancient Books is the TalkShoe site, and on there was a call from today, which is May 9th with Juan, and you can listen to him tell his story about being on court and what happened. Okay, good enough. Y'all have a great night.